It's Friday, and I hope that you can spend just 10 minutes with me releasing some of those tight muscles around your waist, low back, hips, and we are going, there's Laura, hi! We're gonna do some stuff together to make that feel really nice and warm and tingly. I'm hearing from lots of moms that we're having more and more low back pain as we get further into the pandemic. Hello Erin. So I thought we'd start in standing today and then gradually move our way down to the floor. And we're gonna explore just a few different ways we can bring some movement to the muscles around your low back and talk a little bit. Oh, my door just flew open because my children just left. It's real life, people. All right, so I'm back. Okay, so we're starting in standing, and let's just bring the feet to about hip width. We're gonna go right into a hinge to start to kind of warm up and stretch out those hamstrings for the first moment or two. So feet are about hip width. We wanna think of a hinge, just kind of bringing the core inward just a little bit, and then reaching the hips back, feeling a stretch in the hamstrings, and then exhale, just come forward. So we're reaching the sitting bones, like the back of my butt back. So if I had pockets on my pants, I'd be reaching those back to the wall behind me. But I also want to think about kind of popping these knees back a little bit. So you know those two lines on the back of your knees, those 11s on the back of your knees, pushing them back as well. So I'm creating length from the back of the knee all the way up to the butt cheek or the sitting bones. Let's do that a couple more times. Inhale, reach back, feeling a nice stretch. Exhale, come forward. So your range of motion and my range of motion might be different. You might go a little further back. You might not go as far. If you've been experiencing, we're gonna hold this next one. If you've been experiencing some pain, don't push through anything that feels like a strain. So let's come into this position. We're gonna sort of cat-cow and stand in here. So just bring the hands to the thighs, and we're gonna inhale to let the low back extend. Tailbone's gonna reach up, chest and eyes reach forward, and then we're gonna bring the hands together and round the back, tuck the head, tuck the tail. Inhale, pressing into the thighs. This is really nice because it actually gives you a little bit of traction, helps you also bring the upper back into it, and then exhale. Hello, I can see you guys coming on. Feel free to save this for later. If this isn't the right time for you to move right now, this would be a really great one to save and just pull out in the middle of the day or at the end of the day. Also would be a really great morning mobility flow if you're someone who wakes up feeling really stiff in the morning. So just one or two more like that. Inhale, just gently pressing into the thighs, opening the chest up. Exhale, rounding and reaching. One more time, open the chest up, and exhale, round and reach. And then let's just come back up out of that hinge. We're gonna take 1 foot forward and come back into that flowing hinge again. So I'm gonna have my toes up to the sky, but if that feels too intense on your hamstrings, you could have the foot relaxed and you'll still get a hamstring stretch. If it feels okay to have the toes up, we're gonna be in this kind of like reverse kickstand or V-stance. We're gonna inhale into that hinge, exhale forward. Inhale, reach back, and you're gonna feel lots more activity now in that forward leg. So you can control how intense this is by how far away you put it. Let's do a few more on this side. Inhale, reach back, exhale, come forward. And we're not, even though we're really focused around the hips and the low back and the hamstrings right now, we're not forgetting about keeping those eyes pointing the same way as your boobs. So if you're coming forward, your eyes should be looking forward and down as well. I'm gonna try to avoid this kind of constant looking up. And what that can do is just cause us to just really overextend and arch through the spine. Let's switch feet. Bringing the other foot to the front. Inhale, reach back. Excellent. This is my working leg. So if I were doing this with resistance, then I would really want to focus on inhaling to reach back, and then when I exhale, I'm pressing into this standing leg to create that movement forward. I'm bringing the hips back, but keeping this alignment the whole time. So I want to avoid sometimes causing low back pain by not being aware when I'm doing my exercise of where these ribs and hips are placed together in space. So no matter whether I'm hinged or squatting or standing, they are tied together by little suspenders. Let's do one more on this side. Inhale, reach back. forward. All right, so we're gonna do a little something called a T step. So take your left leg, cross it over so it makes this really weird kind of T shape with your feet. And then we're gonna do that hinge again, scoop the hands away and get really long. Come back and step together. Let's just stay on that side for a few. Crossing over, inhale, reach long. Now we're getting a little bit of twisting in those spine muscles, and that's gonna feel maybe like a bit of a release. You might feel a little bit of action in those QL low back muscles, or maybe if the glutes are really tight, maybe a little in the glutes. Let's switch sides. Coming across with the right leg this time, reaching away, and then pulling back and stepping together. Reaching away as you inhale, exhale, coming back to center. Cross over, inhale, reach away. Let's do 2 more. Cross over, inhale, reach away. Back to center, 1 more time. Cross over, inhale, reach away. And rest, really great. Okay, so we are gonna come down into a forward fold. So just move slowly as we come in and out of these deep bends. We're gonna tuck the chin, so pull the ears back first, and then tuck the chin, making the biggest, best double chin you can. And we're gonna roll down all the way. Now you can already feel maybe a little bit of stuff happening in the low back as you go. So imagine doing this kind of vertebrae by vertebrae, coming right down into that hang position. Hang out there for just a second. We're gonna start to walk forward to a downward dog or A-frame position. So just give yourself a second here to let the head be heavy. Maybe you could float side to side. You could wag the hips a little bit. You might find if you we're gonna do a little wagging on our knees in a second, but you may find a little bits of tension through the side body, through the hips, obliques, that QL we were talking about. All right, let's come to center, and we're gonna start to walk out. We're gonna go slowly walking out, feeling for how that changes the stretch in the hamstrings, and just coming to downward dog. Take a second and press yourself back in downward dog. Remember, it doesn't matter if the heels are touching the ground. We just want to feel that pelvis lifted up towards the sky. Pausing here, and then pushing it back through the hands to come to that forward fold again. Just let the head be nice and heavy. Let's do that a couple more times. Crawling the hands out to the downward dog position. Push the floor away, really active in the shoulders. Reaching my tailbone up to the sky. A little bit of a bend in the knees is totally normal. It's okay if the heels are off the floor a bit. And walking back towards the feet. All right, let's try that one more time. Nice and heavy. You should be feeling like you're maybe hanging a little lower as you go through this. So one last time, walking all the way out to downward dog. Give yourself a little push in that downward dog position. Breathing here, we can cycle the knees just a little bit. So just pressing one knee back at a time. Beautiful. All right, this time we're gonna do is we're gonna walk the feet in toward the hands. And then we're going to drop into a squat. If you can keep your hands down, that's fine. I feel like I'm giving you a little bit of a peep show here. All right, wrong shirt for mobility day. Awesome. And then let's pop the bum back up and walk the feet back out to downward dog. Pause there. Walk the feet in toward the hands. So they're about hip width. Drop the bum down nice and low. Eyes up, chest up. Beautiful. And then pop the bum back up and walk the feet back into downward dog. So you'll feel lots of activity in those hamstrings. We're getting into the hip flexors, the hamstrings. The low back is getting a chance to flex and extend. Hands can come up with you or they can stay down, whatever feels best for you. Pop the bum up. Let's do that one more time. Walk the feet back to downward dog, pressing away. So good. And then walk the feet in to that squat. One more time. Dropping the bum down into the squat. Holding here. Just put your boobs back in your shirt. Hands can come down. We can wedge inside the knees. If this is really hard, feel free to come down into a child's pose, and we'll be coming down to join you in a second. But if we can stay in this deep squat for just a breath or two more and feel the pelvic floor releasing and relaxing, just letting gravity kind of hold us for 3, 2, 1, Beautiful. All right, so let's come right down. And you can come into a child's pose if you need a little bit of a break. I'm gonna have you actually come to a cat-cow, and we're gonna add on to that a little bit. So coming into the hands and knees. Now we're just gonna start by trying to isolate the low back muscles in the cat-cow. So we're gonna keep the upper back still and supported. Push away from the floor. Maybe just try that a couple more times. Let the shoulder blades sink together, then press them apart and hold. And then we're going to allow the low back to do its tilts. So I drop the hips down into anterior tilt, tailbone comes up to the sky. This might be a position that a lot of us live in a lot of the time, so it could feel pretty normal and natural. This one might be a bit more challenging, tucking the tailbone if the back is tight, and then feeling the back lengthen, as if I'm bringing the back of my waistband and my bra towards the ceiling. Inhale, extend. Exhale, I flex. Beautiful. So let's just do that a couple more times. Just trying to focus it in the low back, mostly in the pelvis. Beautiful. Now we're going to let the whole back go up into a nice big cat, push away, stretch, tucking the chin, tucking the tail, pressing the bra up towards the sky as high as you can get it, and then stay in that rounded spine. And we're going to very slowly sit back, keeping that rounded spine the best we can, into child's pose, super duper 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 slow. Pausing there. So that's going to come into those upper back muscles a little bit too. We want to free them up a little bit so that they can let go of the low back. And then coming back up to hands and knees. Let's try that again. So just a little bit of a cow. Push away to cat, hold. Super, 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 super slow. Back to child's pose. Take a breath there. And then come back up to the hands and knees. We'll do that one more time. Inhale into the cow, a little bit of a tilt up with the tailbone. Exhale, press away, big, big, big cat stretch. Here we go, last time, see how slow you can go. Really drag it out. Slowly back to child's pose. Hanging out there. Let's take both hands over to one side and just kind of reach the hips away from the hands. So creating a little bit of traction, pressing away on my mat while I press the opposite hip away in the other direction. Coming through center and going to the other side, hands to the side, hip going the opposite way. This will kind of feel a little bit like what we were doing in that T-step earlier when we were standing. So pressing away and trying to really create length through the side body here, even getting a little bit back into that hip and low back. Nice deep inhales as we're doing this. I want to feel those ribs moving. So just stretching everything out from the inside. Beautiful. So we're going to stay on the knees and the butt for a second. So we'll come and bring our bum right onto the heels. Now you can go ahead and grab a mat or a pillow and put it between your butt and your heels if it doesn't feel comfortable to sit all the way down. And let's do a little twisting through the spine from this position. So if you can stay here, if this isn't going to work for you long term, you can come up a little bit taller, okay? So we'll bring the right hand across to the left thigh, and then we're gonna open up with the other side into a spinal twist. So this, holding this in position here, is sort of helping me keep that low back in place. So here I'm actually kind of isolating the mid back. So just gonna go back and forth here. I like to inhale as I reach back. And then exhale to come through the center. Inhale as I reach back again. Exhale, come through the center. Let's just do that a couple more times on each side. Beautiful. Inhale, reach out wide, looking back towards my hand. And center, reaching out wide. One more time. We're gonna hold this one. So holding that big twist. And on your exhale, I want you to exhale and tap the head. Inhale, extend the arm. Exhale, tap the head. Inhale, extend the arm. Let's do that 2 more times. Exhale, tap the head, keeping the elbow as wide as you can. Inhale, extend the arm. 1 more time. Exhale. exhale, I can talk. Inhale, extend, and come back through center, other side. So inhale into that nice big twist. Exhale, tap. I can feel it's harder on this side for me to keep that elbow open. When I flex my arm to tap my head, I really want to drop that shoulder because it's tighter on this side of my chest. So that's okay. Just being mindful that it's not always going to look the same side to side. But this is my body giving me an indication that I'm tighter in that area, and it would be something I don't want to push quite as hard on. Okay, so can we come down onto your bellies now? So come right down, hunker down. We're gonna do a little bit of prone work to finish up and just a bit more kneeling. So we actually want to strengthen a little bit through the low back often when we're having sort of chronic low back pain or tension at the end of the day. There's definitely a lot of postural stuff happening, so just come on down here with me, hang out here. This might feel really challenging. If you can't maintain this prone position the entire time, that's okay. You can come back and forth through child's pose. And this can be a nice thing to do at night before going to sleep. So if you are someone who's on their phone, what? Who would do that? Or reading or watching something before bed, you could switch positions here and there to just get, basically giving yourself a little bit of tummy time, which is really what it is. And so we're gonna just do a bit of movement, but it would also just be beneficial, honestly, just to spend a little bit of time in prone intermittently throughout your days. If you're down on the floor with your kids, or again, like I said, just reading, or scrolling, just flip over and try finding a different position in order to activate different muscles and lengthen the opposite muscles. So we're gonna bring the arms out in front, and this is gonna give us a little bit of pressure to reach back and create a bit more extension. But I want you to lower the elbows and then exhale, press into the hands. And when you press, you're pulling the shoulder blades back and down away from the ears. So we're trying to do as much of that extension, that arching up in the mid back, and we should not feel a ton of intense pain in the low back. If this feels pretty easy, you could bring the hands closer, which is going to give you more leverage in order to push up higher. But again, if you're feeling any pain in the low back, then I would move the hands further away and just don't push quite as far. Feet are staying on the ground. We are just getting some really lovely, kind of like the opposite of what you're probably sitting like most of the day, opening up through the chest and shoulders, extending through that mid back. Let's do 2 more like that. Such a simple movement, but because it's so contrary to what our normal patterns are, it can be such a wonderful way to just help wake up those posture muscles and reduce strain. So let's just take 1 more breath here, holding if you can. And coming all the way down. We're gonna press up onto the knees 1 more time. And this time we're just gonna do a little bit of a wag. This is kind of a fun one. So on the hands and knees, we're gonna lift the feet up in the air. I'll show you a little bit from the side here. We're gonna lift the feet up in the air, okay? And if this bothers your knees, you can do a little extra padding. Actually, my floor feels a little hard today. My knees are not liking it. So we're just gonna wag side to side. Now, I'm actually gonna look towards my feet as I wag. And what's nice about this one, number 1, it just kind of feels fun. But number 2, I'm getting some what we call like lateral flexion. So we're getting some movement through the side body, and we're freeing up those low back muscles a little bit. So we don't want to round and rock. We're just really keeping the spine pretty straight and just trying to move laterally or side to side. Let's do 3, 2 more on each side, 2, and 1 more, and 1, and rest. Let's push back to that child's pose 1 last time. Knees can be a little bit wide. Let the bum really come down. Sometimes we do kind of an untucked child's pose together. This time I want you to let the bum come right down and crawl the hands forward, and we're gonna try to focus a little bit more on that stretching in the low back. So just a couple of breaths into the back ribs here. And we're gonna finish up on our back with a couple more stretches. So come on onto your back and just find a safe way to get down. If you've got low back pain, you might like to come onto your side and roll over as opposed to doing that kind of reverse sit-up motion. Now, I bet you know this one. We're gonna cross over into a figure 4 position, and then we're gonna pull the leg into the chest. But we're gonna do this kind of as a moving one. So we're gonna inhale, lower, exhale, pull it in. And I want you to experiment with the exact position, because it might be nice to pull in a little bit towards the opposite shoulder and feel how that tugs a bit more diagonally on those sort of piriformis, glutes muscles. Beautiful. Let's a couple more times. Pulling up and across wherever you feel the best stretch. And then we're going to hold this one, just taking a couple of breaths here, and we're going to extend and flex through the opposite leg. So a little bit of kind of just active hamstring lengthening. So not a stretch and hold necessarily, but instead working the hamstring through its range of motion. Now your toes do not need to be flexed back. If that's super duper intense for you, just keep the foot relaxed. Just focus on getting the leg straighter. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight, just straighter would be great. And then we'll bring that foot down. We're gonna slide it all the way out. So now I've got a little bit of a groin stretch. I can feel a little bit of sort of pelvic floor stuff happening. I'm gonna bring this knee into the same side of my chest and just hug that in for a breath or two before we go into our final release, which is just gonna be a spine twist. So that's gonna feel really good. Just taking a nice deep breath here first. And imagine this long leg, really bringing that hamstring, that leg down towards the floor. So this is a lovely stretch, and you can make this more intense by even bolstering the hips up a little bit, so putting them on a rolled up yoga mat or a pillow or a yoga block, and just playing a little bit with depth. So that will just give you you'll be raised up so that you can create a more deep stretch. All right, so we're gonna bring this leg across now to finish. We're gonna do this with a little bit of movement as well. So bring it across and bring it back. Bring it across to tap the toe if that's okay for you. It doesn't have to go all the way to the floor. And I want to feel that there's still some weight in this shoulder. So now we're really getting to twisting in the lower spine. And I'm kind of, just like we were kind of holding the lower back in position when we were kneeling and twisting. In that position, we were focused on sort of twist in the mid-back. It's catching my breath a little bit because it's a deep stretch. But in this one, we're sort of keeping the upper back still, and instead we're focusing on twisting a little bit more through the mid and lower spine. So we're gonna come over and hold now, and just breathe here. You can relax this leg a bit. It's a bit more intense to have it straight. And then just kind of find the spot where you feel like you're getting the best stretch. So you can use the other hand to just pull on that knee a little bit, and we're getting a little bit of a glute release, as well as a bit of twisting through the low back. So this is a really nice one. I'm not gonna hold us here too long, because I don't wanna make this flow last an hour, but you could stay down here for a really nice long time. And what I find when you do these held releases is take those big, deep diaphragmatic breaths. And as you exhale, feel yourself just sinking a little bit more and giving into the stretch as you exhale. Let's come back through center. Hug the knees into the chest, which in itself is a low back stretch. And if you're typically, so for someone like me, like I carry weight in my abdomen, so it's not always super comfortable for me to be like tightly up in a ball, but do your best to bring them in, on either side of your belly, straight into the shoulder area. So kind of like lining my knees up with my shoulders as I pull them in, and that's gonna give me a really good back stretch. Again, inhaling, this time I can feel my back ribs expanding into the floor. One more inhale. So good. All right, so just gonna do that sequence on the other side, crossing over into that figure 4 position, pulling into the chest, and then just inhaling to bring it down. So like we did on the other side, you can kind of experiment with this angle a little bit. You might like to pull it across towards the opposite shoulder. You might like to pull it straight in. We'll do a few more like this. I like that crossover. I tend to be pretty flexible in this position, so that feels a bit more intense for me, but it also gives me that that nice feeling when I lift this stretching glute off and change the angle. I feel it coming up a little higher in the glutes and more, yeah, towards that QL and that glute. Last one. Beautiful. And then we're gonna hold and we're gonna flex and extend through that opposite hamstring. So remember, totally normal if one side feels a little tighter than the other. Don't judge it, just be aware. A couple more times here, either flexing the toes and trying to straighten all the way, or just straightening. It might look more like this, might not be all the way up to the ceiling, and that's totally fine. It's not about what shape your body's forming, it's about that sensation of that releasing and that gentle tug through the hamstring. Beautiful. And then we'll just let this foot come down, and I slide it all the way down. This side is tighter for me for sure. So I'm gonna hold this into my chest and just take a breath. And then we sort of corkscrewed it and pulled that knee in towards the same shoulder. So if you're tuned into your pelvic floor, you may feel actually some releasing in the pelvic floor in this position. You can take a couple of deep breaths here and try to connect to that sensation of releasing as you inhale. And then as you exhale, just really feeling that you can go it's just minute, but a hair more deep into that release as you exhale and release the tension. Now we're going to bring this leg across and just sort of tapping the toe or getting as close to the side as you feel comfortable doing. Coming across and then back to center. I'm exhaling as I come over. That's also helping me remember when I exhale into the twist that I want to think about sort of compressing my abdomen and engaging it a little bit inward on the twist, as opposed to holding a bunch of pressure and holding the air in and then creating outward pressure as I compress in the twist. So we'll come over and hold this one and just find a spot where you feel the best stretch for you today. So we're trying to keep the opposite shoulder on the floor, and you can put a little bit of pressure with this hand, or you don't have to. You could have this arm right out and just let gravity hold this leg in place. So it might look a little bit more like this, or it might look like this. This leg can be bent if that feels better for you. And just take a couple more breaths here, inhaling into the ribs. Big exhales. Emptying the air out all the way each time. One more. Beautiful. All right, so we're gonna just press up from sideline, just be gentle with our backs. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully that feels really good. That was a really nice gentle flow, lots of movement through the spine. So have a go. Let me know how it felt for you. I'm going to finish up here with a little forward fold. This is like an optional bonus move. Legs straight out. We're going to grab hold of our feet or your ankles or shins, whatever's the best place for you. You can go ahead and just drop the head and pull the head towards the feet. So I'm just kind of lengthening a little bit through the spine here. It's okay if the knees are a little bit bent too, okay? Taking a breath or two here. Reaching the crown of the head between my feet. Not pulling to the point of having a pain, but I do feel a nice gentle release. Obviously some hamstring stuff. And then a little bit into the low back. If I can pull myself forward. Last breath here. And then just roll up and give it a shake. You're done. Your low back should feel lovely. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Bye.